Good days to all participants. Welcome to the Risk Conversations webinar of the Geneva Association on the topic of insurance in the age of Gen AI. My name is Alex. I'm the research director responsible for the digital technologies topic stream at the Geneva Association. Generative AI is shaping the insurance landscape, influencing both the risks that businesses face and the ways that customers engage with insurers. Today, we will look together what risks does Gen AI introduce or amplify for a business? What could Gen AI risk insurance look like? And how do customers feel about using Gen AI for insurance purposes? Before we start, I would like to introduce the speakers today. First, Mr. Christoph Krieg. He is the Chief Strategic Officer of Pig3, a global provider of software and AI solutions for the insurance sector, and a member of the One Insurance Group. Ms. Anna Mejlerö. He is the Group Foresight Lead at Swiss Re, focusing on identifying and analyzing emerging risks. Mr. Peter Wedge. He serves as the General Counsel at Testudo Global, a company that underwrites firms that deploy AI. A few housekeeping points before we start. First, you could submit a question during the entire webinar by clicking the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. And then you could also, if necessary, to select the translated captions by clicking the Show Caption button also at the bottom of the page. This conference will be recorded and recording will be shared with you after the event. The Geneva Association has published a two-part Gen AI risk series that draws on global surveys of insurance customers to illuminate how Gen AI is redefining risk exposures, protection opportunities, and customer expectations. So first, I will share some key message from the report on Gen AI risks for businesses, followed by a panel discussion of our speakers, and then a Q&A about this topic. We will repeat the same procedure for the second topic on how Gen AI changes the insurance customer journey. The research question of the first report is really about the Gen AI risks introduced to the businesses and how insurance may help to manage and maybe even underwrite such risks. The approach that we have used is a survey of the largest 6 markets in the world. In each market, we survey 100 business representatives that involved in their insurance decision of respective organizations. The key finding we find through the survey are the following. First, we find that businesses are rapidly integrating Gen AI. 48% of respondents find Gen AI very useful, and adoption and perceived usefulnesses are different from markets to markets, and are highest in China and the US, reflect the digital maturity and digital culture in those markets. And one interesting challenge that we find also different in markets is that in China, Japan, and the US, we find the top challenge that businesses respond is limited availability of skilled Gen AI professionals, not enough qualified employee. However, in Germany and France, we find that it's not the skill that is the challenge. but the cultural resistance from employees and customers. That are the top 10. Next slide, please. And we also find a very strong demand for Gen AI insurance. Over 90% of businesses likely to seek coverage for Gen AI related losses. And 2/3 of these 90% of people, they declare that they would pay at least 10% extra in premium for such coverage. We find also strongest demand in technology and the finance sector, and for those who have experienced severe AI failures. Next slide, please. In terms of the recommendation for our insurers, the first is really we would like to highlight. We want to suggest that insurers should actively develop new and refine existing insurance solutions to accommodate Gen AI risks. We cannot wait for perfect data. It never comes. So now is probably the time to start. And also the number 5 is also what I want to highlight. That is, we need to take a balanced approach. Merely risk transfer through insurance would not be enough. We need a comprehensive risk management approach involving mitigation, avoidance, and some risk retention as well. So I would like to pause here and invite our expert opinions. Christoph, Anna, and Peter, I would like first to ask all of you a question. It's a very fundamental question. In your opinion, what do you see the new risks, if any, that this Gen AI rise introduces to us? Or maybe some of the risks are amplified. Anna, would you like to start?
Thank you very much, Alex, and also for the introduction and for the information about the reports, which highlights, of course, some of the new risks that we see and look also from an emerging risk point of view. But as you say, and what we can see in the report is one of the big things that I know many companies are looking into is the hallucination of the models, but also as when we use Gen AI tools, also privately, we know the output is it's confident, it's very strong that this is the correct, but we also know that the output could actually be incorrect at some times. And that could also, of course, be the same when we apply it in the insurance industry. And also with the biased outcomes, which is, of course, a big risk. Another one is, of course, when we do work with more and more Gen AI models, link them together, but also work with external data and the integration of APIs, that I can, like the risk that we may reproduce data that was not meant to be made, like sensitive personal data, for example, which were desensitized, but when it's brought together, when the Gen AI tool are smart enough to link the data together to actually then reproduce information that were not meant to be put together again, that is, of course, a risk. But another angle from an emerging risk point of view that we look into for the industry when it comes to an emerging risk is also the fraud aspect. We know that more than the majority of all digital financial fraud is now done with the help of Gen AI tools to fabricate evidence, and we can probably see for the future in the insurance industry a rise of this being misused for claims and fraudulent claims when it comes to any type of evidence, photos, pictures to support your claims, but also totally made up incidents or events that has never happened. And I just saw the other day how people use fake footages to claim that their food from a takeaway restaurant, the meat is not well done, it could be harmful, it's red meat in the hamburgers and so on. And I think for the future, these type of events and fraudulent use will only escalate in the industry. But with that said, we still know that the most common use of fraud is still from the traditional kind of phishing attacks over emails that we've seen for many years. However, these are amplified with the use of Gen AI tools that can make the emails only better, more customized, also with social engineering to scrape your information from LinkedIn, where you are, which conference you attend, to make the emails very directed to you as a person. But this will only likely increase, and I see that as a big emerging risk, of course.
Thank you, Anna. Peter and Christoph, would you like also to respond to this question?
Yes, let me go next. And I think fully agree with what Anna has said. I think really the beauty of these tools is the democratized access to new capabilities and knowledge that it gives. But now I really look at it from a software provider perspective as well, new risks that it introduces, both in what we provide, but also what we see in our clients are developing and deploying software solutions. It becomes very easy to build now new tools. Basically, every developer, every employee, everyone can suddenly become a software engineer, a developer, right? But what we see is then low quality products being shipped, security risks that are suddenly in products that we didn't see before when we had qualified engineers doing that. So I think this is just one example where we really have democratized access to new capabilities, but if they are not used by experts to enhance their work, it really introduces risks that we didn't have before. That can be in software engineering, it can be in legal professions where suddenly everyone may think they are a lawyer. So I think that's really one of the elements that we see an amplified risk that we internally really try to manage as well.
Right. Thank you, Christoph. Peter, given your 40-year underwriting and claims experience, I would like you maybe respond to the risks that Anna and Christoph mentioned. Are those risks really insurable or non-insurable? Or what kind of insurance product do you see could be a potential solution for this newly arrived risks? Could they be standalone products, extension of existing products, or maybe like some of the insurers are doing that they want to withdraw their implicit coverage by imposing some exclusion to this AI insurance?
Yeah, sure. So I think once we've established what the new risks are from Gen AI and what types of companies will be liable for such risks and affected by such risks, in essence, first party and third party exposure, then we need to think about how the Gen AI, what that would look like, the Gen AI insurance. I think beyond the pure Gen AI insurance, you've got insurance for other negative aspects of AI, such as AI agents, which are tied to Gen AI versus LLMs. So I think for Gen AI risks, we can break this down into first-party insurance, things like business interruption, regulatory fines, and then third-party insurance. So liability for things like financial losses, because selling AI or using AI models for products or services can, of course, lead to legal liabilities, financial losses, and contractual liabilities, depending, of course, on the type of business application, the modality, and which base model was used. So let's have a quick look at what can be covered, what's excluded potentially, and what are the minimum requirements in order to be insured. I think on the coverage side, and here I think we need to be clear, we're not talking about insurance for AI developers or AI vendors. These would be covered by tech E&O insurance generally. We're talking here about deployers of Gen AI products. So we would see the Gen AI third-party liability risk would cover things like bodily injury, property damage, IP and copyright infringement from training data, privacy violations and unlawful data collection, defamation, misrepresentation, false advertising due to hallucination, contractual breaches where AI creates or sends incorrect information, and then regulatory breaches under things like the EU AI Act, state privacy laws, discrimination laws, and potentially future UK product liability reform. And I think in this case, for the liability aspect, we can see that litigation frequency is rising sharply. We've seen a huge increase in lawsuits in the US. You've now got something like 700 lawsuits in the US, which have some aspect of AI in them. And for the exclusions, so you would look at things like accumulation risks, war, cyber war, nuclear, and potentially things which are morally unacceptable to cover, things like suicide. For the minimum requirements, you probably would look at ways that the company is controlling and mitigating their risks. So, for example, have they applied some kind of AI risk management framework, such as NIST or the ISO 42001? I mean, some insurers are trying to sell insurance which requires a confidential evaluation of the LLM, but I think customers tend to see this as invasive, so it's not so popular. So those are the main aspects, I think.
Right, Peter. So I saw your earlier presentation in one occasion that you tried to answer a question that is whether the standalone product or the extension of existing product are going to be dominating in the future AI risk coverage. If I may follow up, can you give our audience some of your prediction, or maybe both?
Sure. So, I mean, the first thing is, if you look at cyber insurance, the history of that, there were exclusions which came into place. If that happens on a large scale in respect of Gen AI or AI generally, then of course that will drive the market to have standalone products. So we see now, for example, in the US, you have the CGL exclusion, which is coming in on the 1st of January 2026. That's going to exclude Gen AI for basically bodily injury and property damage. That then gives a gap, basically, which can be filled by new products. On the other side, if you look at things like regulation, you have more and more regulation. That also leads to different products and specific AI products. You have to monitor the AI regulation in all the different states. You have to look at the federal level. Then you have to look at the regulation within Europe and in the future in the UK. So that also potentially provides a gap for these products. And then the third thing would probably be losses of some kind. At the present time, losses which are actually caused by AI are probably not noted as being caused by AI, which means basically people don't know exactly what their exposure is to AI risk because the losses really are being put down as cyber or D&O, whatever it is. So, in the future, if it's categorized more clearly, we will then see what the total exposure is for any one particular company, and then we can provide products which then cater to that demand.
Thank you, Peter. Anna, from the reinsurance perspective, and also from the emerging risk perspective that you are expert, in your view, which part of these AI risks are insurable, and what kind of product might fit to cover them?
I think Peter covered that very well before, that it's really, we are so much in the very beginning of this, and going to what he said about how cyber was introduced many years ago, the cyber coverage insurance. I think we will see a similar evolvement also for AI insurance, and where, as Peter said, many of the insurance, like the events from AI, will actually not be an AI specific insurance, but they will likely be covered through other already existing insurance and lines of businesses. We will have, of course, niche offerings, but that also time will tell when we learn more and more as an industry how the actual events will play out from AI and the type of events and what actually are insurable from AI, and how we can actually pinpoint what was caused by AI versus something else. And that we're still such in a very early phase for me to make a prediction on exactly how it will look like. But I think Peter had a very well sounded explanation around how he sees the future for that.
Thank you, Anna. Also, we see that if maybe only insurance, conventional insurance products may not be enough to address AI risk. Also, we are aware that some of the Asian markets are more widely and deeply deploying AI in their daily manufacturing and service businesses. Christoph, may I direct you a question? So other than these conventional insurance products, what else can insurers and business do to manage this emerging AI risk?
I think ultimately the most important part is risk prevention, right? Otherwise, if we are not building and deploying AI solutions that are inherently of high quality, it's very difficult to insure them. Right, it's similar as if we build a house, if it's not built to high quality standards with high quality materials, nobody will underwrite that risk as well. And if it doesn't follow proper codes and procedures. So if you're looking at AI, there were new or relatively new standards published like ISO 42001 that manages the AI system management frameworks that companies can follow as well, that I'm sure many of the insurers will use as reference then as well on determining whether they will extend AI coverage as well. But obviously it goes beyond policies. I think a lot of it is applying relevant engineering tactics when building AI solutions, when deploying them, when maintaining them. So hallucinations is one of the big issues, rightly so, but we can really capture these problems or risks to a large extent to proper prompt or context engineering, using other strategies such as retrieval, augmented generation, multi-agent workflows that validate each other's outputs, and so on. Or also what we are now seeing and doing in some use cases where there's a real high risk. For example, if you're selling products through AI applications, through AI agents in a regulated industry like financial services, that you would not use the generated output in the direct interaction, but rather you would only use LLMs for semantic understanding, for reasoning, but not for generation, but let an AI agent, for example, then just choose based on its understanding of the situation from a list of pre-approved responses. Naturally, data desensitization is a big topic. How do we mask data in our own LLM gateway? How do we ensure that there's reduced risk of data leakage, for example, by hosting our AI models ourselves? So I think there's a lot that can be done. And I think one of the important aspects is also how do we limit access to data as well? Let's say if we are deploying an AI agent in a hiring process, in a recruitment software, and we want to make sure that the AI agent doesn't use sensitive data, for example, gender or age in hiring decisions, obviously we can provide this in a prompt that they're not allowed to use that data, but an easier area, for example, is just to limit access to such data in the first place, to role or user-based access controls. So I think there's a lot that can be done on an engineering basis already when building these solutions, when deploying them, to really reduce and prevent a lot of the risks from happening.
Thank you, Christoph. I think the discussion we may pause here and we will continue for another topic later on. Now I would like to open the floor for questions. So again, you may type your question through the icon at the bottom of your screen, the Q&A icon. Here I already received one. I will read. Maybe this question is direct to Peter. Can we offer third-party GenAI insurance when CBI is so restricted, pulled out of the insurance market due to too big CPI claims? Do we need to make a next step for BI or CPI? Peter, you need to unmute. Yeah.
Are you talking about CBI, contingent business interruption?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Could you just repeat just the main point?
Can we offer third-party GenAI insurance given the CBI risk is so large?
To be honest, I haven't looked at that particular aspect. But essentially, you can, of course, offer any type of insurance. You need to know the frequency and the severity, and then the accumulation, right? So, I mean, at the moment, we're working on a product in respect of an AI agent, and there you would have, according to our research, you would have some kind of CBI exposure. You would need to measure that. You need to work out, as I said, frequency, severity, and then put this kind of safeguards in place, restrictions, and potentially exclude certain things which go too far. The biggest problem is very similar to cyber. The biggest problem is always is accumulation. It's okay to have some element of CBI or BI, but when it goes beyond a certain level, because there's so many unknowns, then you have to restrict it and say either it's restricted in terms of policy limit or some kind of aggregate limit. So for the first 2 or 3 years, you've got to be reasonably careful. You've got to control the downside. So you need to create a product which has some usefulness to the customers if they want CBI to be covered, but then doesn't lead to kind of ruinous losses in the first few years when you're trying to gather the data and try to understand exactly what are the most important risks and what kind of factors can affect that. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Peter. So this is a relatively general question. Maybe Christoph and Hannah, you could pick it up from the Asian market and European market perspective. And so, what are the main demand already seen in the market for Gen AI risk? Do we see any risk transfer demand already, or maybe not necessarily risk transfer, risk solution demand in the market already? Christoph, would you like to, since Asia is a bit ahead at the moment, so let's start from Asia.
I admittedly not an expert in that area, and I haven't seen much happening in the market or demand. I think Asia is relatively quick in adopting new solutions, but also more risk accepting in many areas. So I think there may be less demand to get the protection in place and more experimentation happening right away. So I'm not sure, Anna, if you have seen something more concrete happening as well on the reinsurance side.
Thank you, Christoph. No, I can't say anything like specific more than what we see in the industry is that many of the clients are asking for products, and there is, of course, a request for to be covered for any AI faults or misses and events that AI and Gen AI may produce. But I can't list any, of the specific ones because I think the ask is at the moment greater than what there are products on the market from the insurance industry at large.
Thank you, Anna. So maybe last 2 questions for this first section of the discussion. So I have one asking that could you share your thoughts on how the evolving regulatory landscape might challenge the insurance industry in offering the protection against the Gen AI risk for corporates? So it's more about the different regulatory landscape. Some of the regulation might be cautious, more prudent. Some are more encouraging insurance company to step into the world. I think it's very diverse in market. Peter, would you like to pick this up?
I mean, essentially, if you see this whole kind of AI industry, it's basically kind of a battle in a way between the US and China. You've seen the regulation in the EU is very, very strict. And then you've seen in the US at the federal level, they try to avoid regulation. But in fact, the individual states have introduced regulation and it's increasing day by day. So that will, of course, have an effect upon insurance provision. Some of it will be positive, i.e. you've got new regulation, which leads to, for example, fines or penalties, which then are payable for breach of these regulation. So there is at least one product on the market for that. The other ways you would see it kind of affecting insurance is, looking really at what is what kind of AI are you allowed to deploy in that particular country or that particular geography? For example, in the EU, you have these high risk, definitions. So you would probably have less AI deployed within EU than you would, for example, in the US, and that's just going to affect the demand essentially. So I think you would see, the AI kind of proliferation and the regulation and the insurance all going really hand in hand, and it's really early days. For the regulation, it's really about protection, and then for the lack of regulation, you're really talking about AI is so important. We need to encourage innovation. So these are really the two different ways in which the countries are seeing this. So is it a big risk, or is it something which we should actually embrace and actually take us to the next level in terms of economic productivity?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So now I move to the last question, Anna, that falls into your expertise, I think. How this asked very specific. The question is about compare the AI risk and the cyber risk. How would you score AI risk of a policyholder in an automated fashion? Is it similar to a cyber risk? Scan of cyber risk? It's a copy of a cyber risk, or it's different?
I can't really about the scoring, so to say, but it's similar in the way that it's still at what we said a few times now at very early stage, which also the cyber was when we introduced cyber insurance and when we started speaking about cyber risks in the industry, and that we have these secondary kind of effects and connected risks with events that are happening in the cyber area and cyber events or attacks. That also it's not only an attack on the primary subject, but it has then cascading effects on other things in society. For example, when you have a cyber attack against a supermarket, people cannot buy foods, and there could be many other kind of cascading effects from that. And the same thing we see with AI, of course. So in that sense, I would say they are similar, but as we said before, a few of the AI risk will probably fall under cyber going forward. So in that sense, they are not only similar, but they will also be overlaps in how insurance industry will handle these type of coverages.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and for Christoph and Peter as well. We still have a lot of questions unanswered, but I think for the time being, we will have more opportunity at the end of the webinar. We will have another Q&A session around this next topic. Now I would like to move on to our second theme of this webinar. It's also about Gen AI. It's the second part of the Geneva Association report about Gen AI in the insurance customer journey. The research question that we intended to answer in this second report is how aware are prospective customers of an insurer use of Gen AI? So this is more about, on one hand, insurance company provided Gen AI tools to our customer to use. On the other hand, our insurance customer might use ChatGPT or other type of Gen AI off-the-shelf platforms by themselves. We focus on how these Gen AI in operation, in interaction between insurers and customers will improve or will not improve the customer experience. Again, the approach we use is a survey in the same 6 markets, and in each market this time we survey 1,000 individual customers that they purchased the insurance recently. And the key benefits that we find from this survey is that over 80% of insurance customers either favor or neutral towards insurers using Gen AI in customer interaction. It's a very high percentage that we don't see strong headwinds or culture against this. Of course, this varies a little bit across market. As we mentioned below, that customer in Asian markets show higher favorability than those in Europe and the US. We also see that customers are in favor of Gen AI involvement in most of the activities, except one thing, that is advertising. So they don't want AI send them advertisement continuously. Otherwise, it should be okay. And then on the other hand, next slide, please. On the other hand, considering customer using not the insurer provided tool, but the off-the-shelf general purpose AI tools, we also see very strong adoption. We sent this survey online, so this number might be look excessively high, but the trend across different markets are very comparable. Is that a large percentage of our customers have already used off-the-shelf Gen AI for insurance purpose during their insurance purchasing process. So nowadays, as an insurer, when you first time see a potential insurance customer, this customer might be more knowledgeable, equipped, or empowered by Gen AI than you thought. Next slide, please. So we also see some concerns of our customers using Gen AI. We see that these concerns are most prominent and more prevalent in English-speaking countries, UK and US, relatively less in continental Europe, German and French, and then least in Asian markets, China and Japan. And then for insurer-provided Gen AI tools, the top concerns are lack of human touch. That is important because whenever you talk to a AI-answered phone to an insurance company, your customer expect when they need it, they can still reach a human agent to answer the phone. That is important. And other aspects, including privacy, security, accuracy of information that AI generated, that our experts also mentioned a few times in the earlier discussion, and cybersecurity threats. We find similar concerns when customer using Gen AI independently. I think it was Anna mentioned that the Gen AI generated answer, it looks like good, but maybe incorrect or inaccurate in a way. Now it comes to the recommendation implication for the insurance companies. First, we would like to emphasize that insurance company need to accept the reality that your customer are using off-the-shelf Gen AI tools. And given the fact insurance company, this role need to support the customers by providing more accurate information and offering advice better than ChatGPT. So insurance company to demonstrate the value of themselves by providing more accurate information. Of course, this does not mean that this has to be done by human, by insurance companies' employees. This can also be powered by Gen AI, internal Gen AI as well. And it's important to keep humans in the loop and also ensure data quality and privacy protection and also AI governance and employee reskilling is important. The employees of insurance company needs to feel comfortable to working with AI or supported by AI to interact with their customers. So now I would also like to pause here and invite our expert opinions. So the first question I would like to have to all of you actually, in your opinion, what are the top 3 tangible benefits that insurance customers can gain from the use of Gen AI in insurance? This tool can either be ChatGPT or provided by the insurance companies.
if I may go first.
Sure.
For me, I think we need to differentiate a bit between near term and long term. I think in the near term, what we're already seeing right now, particularly in Asia, in China, on the entire customer servicing, a lot of Gen AI is used to make the entire interaction way more convenient and faster for the customer. So we're talking about 24/7 availability, near real-time processing. I think Zhong'an in China now settles around half of health claims in seconds, not even in minutes. And importantly as well, it's a better experience in many cases for the customers in the interaction because context is shared across different interactions and channels. So there's no need to repeat what was mentioned before, which is way more difficult in a pure human setup where human customer service personnel needs to refer to prior notes as well. If you're looking more in the long term, I actually believe and hope that these savings that insurers also generate through automation will translate to lower premiums for the customers as well, because they will harvest cost-saving dividends from Gen AI, from agentic AI, that will need to be passed through at least partially to the customer due to competitive dynamics. I think the insurers who will be able to automate the most by leveraging AI, but also by tackling fraud, waste, and abuse, will gain a competitive advantage very quickly because they will be able to price more competitively and grow ultimately. So these for me are in the near term, I think the key benefits on faster and more convenient services, and then in the medium longer term, more efficiency gains that will be passed to the customers as well.
Thank you, Christoph. So if I may summarize, you mentioned faster. That's clearly what Gen AI. But from the quality perspective, do you see that the benefits include in some aspects that this Gen AI can do better, provide a more higher quality than traditional we do?
Definitely. I think it depends still on the specific use case. If you look at very complex interaction, maybe not yet, but most of the processes run by insurers, at least on the retail side, are heavily standardized. And AI can learn from thousands, 10,000s of interactions very quickly, whereas humans need to slowly learn and scale. And following standard procedures is more difficult to enforce with human operators versus if you have an AI system in place. So what we're seeing for different use cases, but typically, for example, in AI-assisted sales, that the AI agents actually perform better than around 70% of the human customer service staff or telesales staff. So I think there's really a high potential, and we are still early on in the journey.
Thank you, Christoph. So of course, in addition to these benefits, we also see challenges based on our survey. But these challenges is to our customers, but also customer raise higher expectations for our insurance companies. So the question I have is that what are the most significant challenges, in your opinion, that insurers are facing when deploying AI to serve their customer? And if I may, so if there are challenges, what source of this challenge do you think it's from? It's from technical limitations, customer preferences, maybe companies' internal resistance, or maybe regulation, any aspects. What are the challenges, and where does this challenge come from? Anna, would you like to pick up this?
Sure, thank you, Alex. I actually think that there are challenges coming from all these areas that you just explained. It's not just from one of them. One that comes to my mind is I think that's written about in the report, is the black box issue. When we deal with Gen AI and these complex and very difficult models and systems that may be hard to explain. And if we think about at the insurance industry at large, I think many people in general find insurance a bit complex and a bit hard to explain. And we need as an industry to make sure we don't double this complexity, but that we really demystify what we do and that we are really transparent as an industry when we deploy Gen AI tools, why we do that and for what benefit. So we make sure we don't just create more anxiety or more complex questions as our users may already find policies hard to read or understand why they are worded in a certain way. So I think that's very important that we are transparent as an industry when we deploy these tools and why we do that.
Yes, I certainly agree that we use AI to make customer feel better, easier, and more convenient. So if AI add another layer of complexity for our customers, that's probably not the direction we should go. But then it comes to a more fundamental question. Also, Christoph mentioned that the AI replacing some of the functions traditionally performed by employees. But nowadays, we also see from the customer survey that customers sometimes need a human. And when they feel this issue is complex and this issue is emotional, they want to reach out to the human agents. Then I come to my question that do you think in some days, maybe in 5 years or 10 years, or maybe never, will we have 100% independent, fully functional AI insurance agent or AI insurance broker? Do you see that? I know it's not yet the stage for the time being, but do you see a potential of these fully functional AI insurance agents or broker? Peter, would you like to pick up this?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, of course, the broker is a specific type of agent. They act as an independent intermediary to arrange transactions. But the problem is, of course, the broker is regulated. So a company which carries out any kind of broker functions will still need to have a qualified kind of human in the loop and also comply with regulations such as treating customers fairly in the UK. I think theoretically, yes, it's possible to build an interface, for example, to ChatGPT, where insurance could be purchased, essentially a buy button, and potentially include a human in the loop to provide or review the regulated activity. But it would, of course, require probably specific authorization by the local regulator in order to be prudent. One problem, of course, is that any AI agent which is linked to an LLM will inherit all the issues with LLMs, things like hallucinations that we talked about before. Probably the answer, we have to split it into something like retail, commercial, and reinsurance. I think on the retail side, it's feasible, subject to regulation, as we said. You can perhaps compare that to, basically like an AI law firm which provides legal advice, and such companies are regulated in the UK by the SRA. I think for commercial brokers, it's harder because there's more complex risks and different relationships. So probably customer preference will probably play a role there. And for reinsurance brokers, similarly, the risks and structures can be complex, and relationships are really key. Sorry, am I breaking up? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay. And yeah, on the reinsurance side, essentially you're dealing with insurance customers rather than the general public. So the regulations regarding reinsurance brokers are more focused on things like financial solvency and licensing rather than consumer protection. So I think it's possible on the reinsurance broking side. You do have a big moat there, but what's stopping one insurer from placing part of their reinsurance? You do have a big moat. What's AI agent? I think I'll stop there. I'm breaking up a little bit. Sorry.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much for sharing your insights also from the regulatory side. Christoph, I know in Zhong'an and many of the Asia small small insurance amount policies, the purchasing process is already 100% automatic. But for those more complex products that are now handling by human agents and broker, do you see such a potential that AI can be independently handling that, and to what extent?
I think it's certainly the case, and I just want to emphasize or repeat again what Peter said. In the retail insurance side, it's basically technically already possible, but regulatory, there's still question marks, right? If you're looking purely on simple life products, motor insurance products, there's nothing really in there except with some specialty cases that would stop an AI agent that is trained on standard operating procedures to execute the sales processes, to provide advice as well, probably in a more standardized and compliant way than many humans are doing it, particularly where you still see mis-selling or where many agents or brokers may be driven by commissions, their own interest, and not necessarily the customer's interest, which you could manage more easily through prompt context engineering as well. So, but as said, licensing is certainly a topic, and ultimately who takes responsibility as well if things go wrong. You cannot put AI in jail at the moment. That's still the executives that will need to be responsible. So a full AI brokerage without any humans at all that take responsibility and accountability, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Anna, would you like to add on that?
Thank you, Alex. Nothing specific, actually. I think both Christoph and Peter is giving good insights, and I do agree that I can't see it coming in the very short term side, and especially with as it's a regulated industry, and we have a complex regulatory with AI, of course, and how insurance companies can work. So maybe in the very far future, but let's see. I can't tell exactly when that will happen or if.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. Thank you all. Now I think I will open the floor for a question from the audience. Even before we started, we have already quite some. I apologize that we cannot answer all of them, but I will be happy to follow the order a bit. If traditional insurance policies do not expressly exclude Gen AI losses, may we face unintended silent AI cover, like silent cyber? This is actually from the previous theme. So we take this question from the previous theme, and then we move to the following from the second theme. The insured can argue the loss falls under the broad wording, and courts may interpret ambiguity against the insurer. This is a wording question. If traditional insurance policy do not expressly exclude Gen AI losses, may we fall into unintended coverage because the court can interpret the ambiguity against the insurer? Peter, would you like to pick that up?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly covered, unless it's excluded, basically. So the silent cover is a classic. It was a big problem with, in cyber, and now it's also a massive problem, I think, in AI insurance. So there is a lot of AI silent coverage, and absolutely correct. The courts will say, unless it's excluded, then it is covered. So I think everyone's looking at that, and that's one reason why you're going to get standalone products, I think, as long as there's sufficient losses and awareness of the exposure.
Thank you, Peter. I have a very fundamental question. Does Gen AI as a technology deserve special attention, or it is just the next wave of digital technology after big data, machine learning, blockchain, and so on? So from the technology perspective, how do you see the generative AI towards the insurance industry? Is this another hype, or it's really something new? or really something material. Christoph, would you like to pick that up?
So I don't really want to talk about emerging risks. I think there Peter and Anna are better suited to comment, but at least from a pure operational perspective of how insurance companies are run, I do believe it has a massive impact. We see that particularly on all the operational processes, on underwriting, customer servicing claims, where we will see significant impacts both on analytics, say fraud, waste, and abuse, identification, but also streamlining a lot of the operational processes. And I do believe the insurance organization of the future in 5 to 10 years will look completely different when we look at the workforce composition, where we will have way fewer people in traditional manual roles in customer servicing, in claims management, and it will lead to a massive shift in how insurance organizations are run.
Yes, I received actually a follow-up question on this to your answer. You mentioned we'll replace a lot of functions. The question is then, will AI totally replace human service within the insurance industry? Or maybe from which function do you see, to all of you, which function do you see is the first to be replaced? So Christoph, maybe you continue and then we go with Anna and Peter.
So I would say customer servicing and claims, they will have the biggest impact. I don't think they will be fully replaced. And maybe just as one anecdote, a couple of months ago, I was at Peking University visiting your students where we had the discussions. And we also asked your students, how do you see this changing? And your students, still quite young, they thought 80 to 90% of the jobs will be gone in some of these functions, right? Whereas now most of these consultancy reports will tell you 20, 30, 40% will be gone. But I think young generations fully exposed to these AI tools are quite more bullish of the impact that it can have achieved, or more bearish when it comes to their job prospects in the insurance industry.
So Peter, you worked in long time in claim handling. So do you feel the same?
Essentially, the Gen AI is very good at things where it's very rule-based. So claims is a very good example. Normally, you would have some kind of triage. You would pay it quickly if it's not very complicated, and then basically just focus your resources on complex claims and expensive claims. So that's really the area that was going to hurt most. For the underwriting, for example, it's a science and an art. So only half of it can be done by AI, and the other half you still need to have some kind of Bauchgefühl, basically looking at what's your judgment based on your experience. It's not so easy to just follow rules, and that's another reason why it's used a lot in the legal services, because again they're just following rules, although of course you can get it wrong with the hallucinations, so you need some kind of safeguards.
Well, I think, thank you, Peter. I think the emerging risk detection and assessment probably the most art part of of our job. That might not be easily replaced by AI, I assume, Anna.
I think just like what we said before, the kind of what's monitored and to gather data, that can of course be done better or more quickly, so maybe not better, but more quickly to gather a lot of data. But then you still need a human to understand your own business and how these emerging risks actually translates for your specific business and how to mitigate that, which may not hopefully be that easily replaceable. And I just a comment to what you discussed before with the others is, even if we will see a move of jobs in one area, I think there will also be new creations of jobs. For example, if we have tools that will detect fraud in claims, if we all of a sudden can see many more fraudulent claims, we may need more people who actually investigate these and on a bigger scale to work on these. So it doesn't mean that just because some jobs will disappear, that no others will be created. I think that's a move as well to new type of jobs we haven't seen yet in the industry.
Thank you very much, Anna, to give us a happy ending, give us some hope in the era of Gen AI. I would like to take this opportunity to again thank you all the speakers and the audience. It's unfortunate that we cannot pick up more questions due to the time constraints. I would have to close this webinar now. Thank you for your attention and for I hope you enjoy the conversation and the last thing I would like to remind is there will be a pop-up survey while you exit the webinar. So we would really appreciate your feedback. That's important for our future events. I also wish to see all of you in our future Geneva Association events. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex.